Hey everyone, this is Jay, also known as jaynemesis from eToro. This is our eToro update for week 32 of 2018. As you guys can see, we've switched things up a little bit in how the presentation is done. So I'm going to start with the trading stats this time. Minus 3.12% portfolio change, a realized profit of plus 0.25%, 15 trades closed, 14 profitable, 1 unprofitable, and Tesla was our most traded instrument this week. Our top news this week, Tesla has been talking about going private. Elon Musk sent out a tweet where he said that he has secured funding to take Tesla private potentially at a price of $420 per share. It's pretty clear that a company like Tesla could benefit in many ways from being private, and it's obviously also pretty clear that Elon Musk isn't the kind of person that really enjoys being a public-facing CEO. But there have been a lot of cries from people shorting the stock and a lot of critics of Tesla suggesting that this breaches quite a few rules from the SEC and potentially is an attempt by Elon Musk to try and game the markets and manipulate the price of Tesla stock. We haven't really seen any big confirmation by Tesla to back up the claims. They have said that Elon has shown them a few things to suggest that it is real, but we haven't really had a proper official statement from them or Elon that really confirms exactly who the potential investors are that are raising the capital that would allow them to do the share buyback. That being said, I basically expect this situation to conclude within the next week, and that's when we should see something come from this to really indicate exactly what is going on. But the Tesla stock has been on a pretty wild ride while this has been happening, up by as much as 20% at one point, before settling back down at where it was before, rather ironically. Next up, Bitmain is going for an IPO, and it is huge. So Bitmain, as many of you hopefully know, is one of the biggest mining cartels in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency overall. They actually are big fans of Bitcoin Cash, and a bunch of documents from Bitmain about the IPO actually got leaked recently. From those documents, we figured out roughly what valuations they're going for. We know roughly where their assets are at the moment. We know how much money they've been making. But there's actually quite a lot of concerns that have come out of this. And personally, I find this very, very concerning for Bitcoin Cash and people that are trading Bitcoin Cash actively. So Bitmain currently own over 10% of all Bitcoin Cash in existence, which is a bit of a problem because it means that they really can't afford to sell much of it. They've been very vocal in supporting Bitcoin Cash, and hilariously, we've also learned that since investing in it, they've lost around 50% of the value through converting from Bitcoin to Bitcoin Cash because Bitcoin Cash has performed much worse than Bitcoin recently. And it seems likely that if they were to start selling off from that account, it would scare a lot of Bitcoin Cash holders and potentially cause a big price collapse, not to mention if they started to sell in large quantities. They've also had some problems with their chips for mining on various other different cryptocurrencies. Some of them are actually unprofitable at the moment. And since the mining market has declined over the past few months due to the bear market, they're simply not able to sell a lot of the stock that they currently have. So they own a lot of stock that they can't shift at the moment. There's a few other big concerns as well, but if we kind of talk about the positives and the reasons that this could work, so Bitmain already has raised funding from some very, very major partners, including SoftBank and Tencent. There's also a couple more big investors out of China as well, I believe. And of course, Bitmain have also been diversifying in what they do. So they've invested pretty heavily into backing EOS and buying shares of Circle, for example. So the IPO, if it goes ahead successfully, will be raising somewhere in the region of $18 billion at a $50 billion valuation, which would make it one of the biggest IPOs ever. Personally, I'm very, very concerned about some of the things that have been uncovered from these leaked documents, and I will be steering very, very clear from this. And in fact, I actually have a short open on Bitcoin Cash at the moment as pretty much a result of seeing some of the stuff that was leaked through these documents. Finally, Turkey. So probably you've already seen this in the news, but Turkey is in some serious trouble with their currency at the moment. It dropped over 20% in a single week, and I believe it's down by around 40 to 45% over the course of this year so far. This is actually basically for multiple reasons. But effectively, what really was the catalyst for this event was the president basically telling the population to sell all of their gold, all of their euros, and all of their dollars because they are in a currency war against the West for the most part. Obviously, this was not taken very well by many over in the US and Europe, who have since, I assume, reduced their positions in Turkey and their holdings of Turkish lira. Overall, I don't really understand quite why the president came out with that statement. It seems like a really risky thing to do. You're never going to win a currency war against those kind of currencies, so it's pretty pointless to try and even start one, to be honest. This does, of course, have some potential for systemic risk and a systemic market crash as a result of this. Already, we've seen some contagion into Europe and into the South African currency as well, which has also dropped by 10% now. And again, like if you look back at 2009, 2008, it's very easy to see that you can have one big catalyst that can cause these kind of big market corrections and big market crashes effectively. I don't think this is it, but it is definitely something to be keeping an eye on at the moment, and this could affect markets. Obviously, the way markets work is that everything is connected in some way. For all we know, one of Tesla's many components that's in its supply chain comes through Turkey. And so it can have an effect on Tesla. And it's the same with pretty much every other company. You know, the world is such a connected place that it's very, very likely that somewhere there is some big exposure to Turkey, which could lead to problems down the line. That being said, so far we've seen pretty minimal effect, and the market has been obviously open all day today so far at the time of recording this video. So I think we're probably just about safe, but I'll be keeping an eye on the situation regardless. On to my trading for the week. So starting with the cryptos, there was only one trade closed this week in cryptos, and that was on EOS for a 5.6% profit. I then opened it again a little bit lower. I also opened a trade in Bitcoin at a similar time that I was hoping would also do reasonably well and catch a small bounce. But unfortunately, it didn't. So that trade has actually since been closed for a small loss. But obviously that's in next week's. So overall, in the crypto market, there's quite a bit going on at the moment. I do think that there is some way further to go on this leg down before we bounce back up. I did say a couple of weeks ago that I expect us to come back down to the 5.5k to 6k range, which we're just above at the moment. So hopefully we will see that come to play, and hopefully we can bounce back up. I think if we do bounce back up above 6k after being down below it for several days, that is a sign of some good strength and resilience, and hopefully that will be the double bottom that we need in crypto to start kind of pushing the technicals more towards a positive light. On to the stock recap. So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, Tesla has had a pretty wild rollercoaster week. I did manage to take advantage of it. We had 3 trades closed for a small profit of around 1 to 2%. And one position that I managed to buy basically as soon as the news broke and close out for a 10% profit. So that was a nice bit of trading based off of what was going on with Tesla during the day on Tuesday. Snapchat, they released their earnings. I haven't actually listened to their earnings call yet because it's not really a big priority. I only had a couple of positions in there, and obviously the market has since been open, and you know nothing's caught on fire. We did lose 5.9% on one of the long-term shorts I had open, but I did also make a small profit by going long on Snapchat for a few hours around the time of their earnings as well. Wix and Shopify are both pretty similar. So I opened trades during a small dip. Most of them were in Wix. I think it was 3 trades, and there was a single trade in Shopify as well. All of them made between 1 and 2% profit. AMD was another one very similar to those above, just a really quick day trade for 1% profit. Etsy was a company that really, really impressed me during their earnings call, and we've seen some nice bullish moves in the Etsy stock price since their earnings call. I think this is something that I'm going to be positioning myself quite heavily in ahead of their next earnings call, because I really do think they've got a lot of room to expand, very similar to Square actually, although kind of separate markets. But this week I closed a couple of trades. One of them was around 1% and the other was around 7%. So some healthy profit taking there. And again, I'll be looking to re-enter at a lower price on those positions. As I mentioned last week, Sony is another stock that I really, really like. And although I said I wouldn't get back into it, I did get back in there. Again, I actually ended up turning this trade into a very, very small profit and just taking the 0.2% profit because, as I said last week, it is a very, very difficult stock to really get much out of. It's not very volatile. And volatility is, of course, what we need to try and make money out of trading. So unfortunately, we didn't make too much money, and perhaps I finally learnt my lesson that although I really like Sony, it's perhaps not the best thing to be trading actively. Onto the performance tab, which as you can see has changed quite a bit from the last time you guys saw it. The reason that I decided to change it with the help of Jesse was that effectively we realized that we were explaining what realized trades were and trying to explain that we were closing green trades very often, but we weren't displaying that information to you guys in a very coherent way, really. So here what we've done is we've basically copied the portfolio change chart and made the same thing for our realized trades. So this is mapping the positions that have actually been closed in each month and each week. And going forward, we will be showing it like this, hopefully. So this should help visualize exactly what's going on. And although the big portfolio change is currently in red and it all looks rather gloomy, we have been closing a lot of green trades and we are consistently making profit, although June was a pretty bad month. So let's talk through it. Portfolio change this week was minus 3.12%. Not great. I did say that we've got another bad week coming last week. I think we possibly have one more bad week still to come as well. As basically this is caused by the cryptos slowly kind of heading back down to that 5.5k range. And since we're mainly holding on to all of our crypto positions, we're pretty much just along for the ride on this. So the portfolio change, we expected this to happen. I'm pretty okay with it. Hopefully, midway through August, towards the end of August, we should see it turn around and start heading back up into the green. So September should be a pretty green month for the portfolio overall. In terms of realized trading, as you can see, it was another profitable week, but not very profitable. Similar to last week, there were a few mistakes, and it wasn't as good as it could and should have been. If we look at it on a monthly basis, you can see that June really was a pretty nasty time for us, but July we did well during the earnings period. I do think that we're still going to have a bit of a rough August because I think the situation with cryptos pretty much demands some rebalancing and also just a refreshing of positions to make sure that some of my newer copiers actually get in on some of the Bitcoin trades and things that were opened way back in December or January. So I will be refreshing a couple of trades here and there just to try and get a little bit of exposure for some of my newer copiers. But for the most part, I do expect August to end slightly in the red on realized trades. That being said, of course, I'll try my best not to make that happen. So looking ahead, we have one big earnings call left, and that is NVIDIA. I have quite high hopes for NVIDIA. I think that they really have basically won the war of graphics with AMD. And I think they're also pretty far ahead in the AI war as well, which uses very similar chip technology, which is why they're doing well in that as well. The new line of GPUs I expect to be announced this year, but I'm not sure when. One of my favorite sources for everything related to graphics and crypto and this kind of stuff, specifically to do with hardware, is Adored TV on YouTube. And he actually recently received a leak that suggests that they're coming as soon as late August or early September. So if that's the case, then we really do need to make sure that we are positioned for it, because there's always a pretty big spike, and NVIDIA have a track record of consistently improving by around 30% or so, and I don't see any reason why this should be any different. So we're going to make sure that we're well positioned for this, which means we will be quite heavily exposed during the earnings as well. But I do think that earnings will go well. The only thing that I think will go badly is the crypto-related sales and stuff, I guess, because, as I said earlier in the video, crypto mining has not had a very good time so far this year. The other thing that I think is coming up for us is the capitulation of altcoins. So this is something that I said could happen once we kind of went below the 10K mark or so on Bitcoin, which is that cryptocurrencies are going to start dying. It's primarily going to be all the really small altcoins, but there's definitely a chance that some of the bigger altcoins could be pretty badly affected by this major correction in cryptocurrencies. I did express some concern a few weeks ago that Litecoin, I think, is potentially one of them. And that it really doesn't have any unique property that kind of warrants it being a top 10 cryptocurrency. And that's why I reduced my exposure to Litecoin. And since doing that, it has depreciated much more quickly than most of the other cryptocurrencies. Ethereum recently has also kind of shown a few signs of weakness. It should survive because there are so many big projects built on it. And I don't really expect it to fall, but it's certainly having a pretty rough time at the moment as Bitcoin is kind of eating up the market cap of all of these smaller altcoins. That being said, we've seen some pretty big success stories as well. So although EOS has lost an awful lot of value recently, it has still outperformed Bitcoin so far this year. Likewise, Stellar has also performed very well during this period, and that's why both of those are still pretty major parts of my portfolio. I'm still very confident in how both of those are performing. Cryptocurrencies like Neo and Cardano, for example, I think will continue to kind of tread water and perhaps not perform as well as Bitcoin, but I think they will pretty comfortably survive this. The point of this section really is to kind of alert you guys to what I think is happening, which is that we're going to see the number of cryptocurrencies gradually reduce from the 2,000 or so that exist at the moment down to maybe 500 or so. And this is very, very important. It's very similar to the dot-com bubble, where we saw the same thing and a lot of the weaker competition, the weaker startups, and the cryptocurrencies that really have no unique selling point disappear because they're just not necessary and they're not useful, and they're actually kind of hindering the growth of this ecosystem overall. So I think that's pretty much around the corner. We've already seen some major cryptocurrencies fall under, and there's definitely some that I think have weakened substantially. I could be wrong about this, but I do think that it's definitely something to keep in mind, especially if you're someone that kind of just took a punt on a lot of different cryptocurrencies. It may be worth spending some time going back through them and deciding which ones you really think have actually made good progress and actually have a real unique selling point. Okay, that just about does it from me, guys, for this week. Thanks for watching, and I will see you again next time.